hope you are ready to make the best meatloaf you've ever had. All right, once again, I've kind of spared you some of the boring parts. There's 1 pound of ground beef in here and half of a yellow onion chopped up however you like it. Some people chop them fine. If you have people that kind of have an aversion to onions, you might chop them up very small. We happen to love onions in our house. To that, we're going to add 1 cup of panko breadcrumbs. So I use this brand right here. It's panko plain, not seasoned. The reason why I use panko is because it is it's larger. As you can see, the crumbs are large. They're not fine like the typical breadcrumbs that you buy. The reason why I do that is because I find that the meatloaf kind of ends up with almost a gummy texture if you use the fine breadcrumbs. Some people don't mind that. I don't care for it. So we use panko in our house. It seems to hold the meatloaf together pretty well too. So now that we've got that in there, we're gonna love my wonderful measuring cup, my little glass here. This is a ½ cup of regular old milk, nothing special. And then of course 1 large egg, gotta hold everything together. Binding agent, so to speak. Then we are going to put 2 tablespoons of ketchup in here. I didn't prep all that beforehand, so you're gonna have to forgive me. And I kind of been using my spoon for the topping mixture that I've already started over here, so. And I measure real carefully, as you can tell. So it's about 2 tablespoons. I use regular old ketchup. Nothing special. The cheapest, whatever they have on sale. All right, now that we have the ketchup in there, let's add a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. I like this brand. Seems to taste better than the other brands that I've found out there over the years. But you do you, whatever makes you happy. All right, we got the Worcestershire in there. Now there's some real careful measuring. I put, I don't know, couple teaspoons of parsley flakes in there, dried parsley. The salt, we're kind of adverse to salt in here in our house. Some people would put about 3/4 of a teaspoon in here. I generally put about half-ish teaspoon of salt just because we don't like things real salty. You can season that to your specifications if you like salt. About a ½ teaspoon or so, but I generally put about 3/4 or so teaspoon of garlic powder. This is actually granulated garlic, but garlic powder works too. The next thing you're gonna wanna do is put some pepper in there. Now I put a lot of pepper in mine. A lot of people don't like all that pepper, but I put at least a teaspoon in there. Hamburger meat loves pepper, and it makes it taste, I can't explain it, but it does something to the flavor of the meat. So anyway, onion powder. I know we have onion in here, but I put about a ½ teaspoon to a teaspoon-ish of onion powder in there as well. So now what we're gonna do is have Mr. Everything. He's sitting over here waiting on me because he knows I need help when it comes to mixing this stuff here. He's gonna come over here and mix this up for us. And I'm gonna step aside. Come on over, sir. Anyway, you wanna mix this until it is super mixed very, very well. You don't want it to be crumbly or be falling apart in any way. You want it to stick together very well. Sometimes I'll get some gloves on, you know, rubber gloves, plastic gloves, cookie gloves. I'll show you. Anyway, you can buy gloves at the store to use to mix things. I typically just use the chemical resistant nitrile gloves. They're not powdered or anything. Be careful of that. You don't want any of that in your food. And soon as he gets that pretty well mixed up, I usually wash them off after I put them on. I wash my hands just to make sure they're clean and clear of any kind of stuff. And then I will take over. Thank you, Mr. Everything. Say hi, y'all.
Hi, y'all.
Don't know what I would do without him. He's my everything, really is. You know, I'm not very tall, so we have these cabinets in our kitchen that are made for what I call giants. And so frequently I'm having to have him bail things out of the cabinets for me. So, because he's much taller than I am. So, I don't know, again, you know, all kinds of wonderful help he gives me. So, okay, see how this is getting very sticky, it sticks together, it's not crumbly or falling apart anymore. You want it very mixed up so that it's kind of like that. It just kind of sticks together. Has its own little loaf there. Okay, once you get that done, we're gonna put it in my lovely pan over here. Hold on. And whee! There we go. I'll get this out of the way. And we're gonna just squish it down in the pan. This is a stoneware pan. I love cooking meatloaf and casseroles in these dishes because it gives the edges that nice crusty browned sides and bottom. It's yummy, yummy. But a regular loaf pan or even a square pan would work too. I've made meatloaf many times in other regular old pans, not stoneware pans. But you might find if you have one that you get a very much better result if you bake in these. Bake casseroles and stuff in these. So, okay, now that we have this, you want it squished down in there evenly, you know, just kind of pat it out like I'm doing. Okay, next thing I do is I'm gonna get rid of these gloves and we're going to make the topping. And in this lovely bowl here, I have 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. And you just kind of push it into your spoon, you know, scrape it off the top and throw it in there. I use dark brown or light brown sugar, whatever I have. Either one works. The dark brown gives it a little bit of more of a caramely flavor. We kind of like that here at the Oasis. And then I added 1 tablespoon of red wine vinegar to that. Red wine vinegar. And I mix it up. Next thing you're gonna do is add about 1/4 of a cup. You see I measured in my 1972 Tupperware measuring cup here. I was very precise, as you can tell. Somewhere around 1/4 of a cup of ketchup. And just throw that in there. If you like more ketchup-y taste, put more in there. Some people use barbecue sauce and all kinds of fun things in their topping for their meatloaf. This just happens to be the perfect blend of tanginess for our household. So that's what we do. So anyway, I started this before I started mixing the meatloaf because I like the sugar to dissolve in there in that red wine vinegar before I mix the ketchup in. It kind of gives it, see how smooth quickly? That just became smooth real fast. Okay, once you get that done, you're going to take a little spatula or use your spoon that you have in your bowl. Either one. I use a spatula so I can get all the goodness out. And scrape it all in there, you know. I'm gonna put this spoon aside. And there's our oven. You can hear it, it's ready. By the way, I preheated that to 350 degrees. I didn't tell you guys that at first. But now you know. Preheat your oven before you start all this so it's nice and hot before you put your meatloaf in there. So now I know this doesn't look like a lot, but once you spread it out, it covers the whole top of this meatloaf. Some people like to double this up, and sometimes I do that, but I didn't do that today because I wanted to show you the actual recipe that I use for the single measurements. But as you can see, it makes a nice little topping, and there's still quite a bit left there. So you can just smooth it out. Just smooth it out like that. All right, boy, it's windy here today. The wind's been howling all day. It's nice out. It's warm for this time of year for sure. And I try to tap off all the extra. If I wasn't on camera, guys, I would just be using my finger to scrape that stuff off in there. Of course, and then I go wash my hands. All right, so now that we have that all done, the next thing you're gonna do is pop this in an oven at 350. I bake mine right about, I check it at 45 minutes to see how done it is. I don't, you know, some ovens cook hotter than others, or, you know, cooler than others, but I do double this recipe quite often, and most of the time actually. And when I do that, I usually have to bake it an hour. So we're gonna check this one at 45 since it's a single recipe here. And I will see you guys when we get back. Hello everyone, we're back. And I wanted to take a minute to show you the difference between the breadcrumbs, you know, I was talking about earlier. So right here we have the Progresso, right here we have the Progresso. This is the Panko, all right? So if you'll look, you see the difference in the two, right? See how much bigger and more coarse these are, right? And then these are very fine and just very, very crushed. Well, these are the ones I don't use in my meatloaf because I feel like they give it a really strange texture. So, and I find the same thing with any regular breadcrumbs that I buy. I've tried the generic, I've tried this one, and I've tried another brand. So I don't use those anymore. We use the Panko, see the big ones, just plain unseasoned. Okay, now that we've discussed over the breadcrumbs. By the way, my microwave's still not repaired. I just want y'all to know we have a home warranty. We are not real pleased with them. They had an appointment and then all of a sudden they just decided to not show up and change our appointment to Halloween day, actually. So we are still doing things the old-fashioned way. All right, so here's the meatloaf. As you see, it shrunk. By the way, the beef that I used in this, you might have noticed the different color in that beef when we were mixing this up. This is beef that from the calves that we raised, I should say, grew. That's funny. Anyway, we raised these calves, and we know exactly what they were fed and everything. So if you'll notice, the hamburger meat is not as red, or it's not as, it's not dyed. It doesn't have any of those additives or anything in it. So it does have a different, more kind of a duller color to it. So that being said, our hamburger meat is about a 90-10. So you can see that it did shrink while it was cooking. You see we've got nice caramelization on the top with our topping. A little trick that I do at the end of the baking cycle is I will turn off the oven and turn on the broiler for a couple minutes, and I stand right there and watch it because it will burn this topping if you don't. So I've cautioned and warned you all. That being said, I usually let it sit for 5 to even up to 10 minutes to rest. And I know that was a big joke with a lot of people, and I never took it real seriously. Why do you need to let meat rest after you cook it? That just doesn't make any sense to me. Why can't we just eat it immediately? Well, you can, but if you let it rest for a little bit, some of those juices and things will be reabsorbed into the meat, into your dish. And also meatloaf will set up, kind of like pudding or anything else. It will set up and get more firm if you let it sit for a few minutes after you get it out of the oven. So anyway, folks, there's our meatloaf. I'm going to get little spatula, and we will just put a little piece of that in here. Oops. I've only got one pot holder underneath there right now. We do not really put anything on top of our meatloaf. Some people will put ketchup, barbecue sauce, Heinz 57. One of my kids, when he was little, Nate, he kind of put ketchup on almost everything. He didn't really want anything else for a long time there. He eats everything now though, and he's a good cook too. So there's our meatloaf. I'm gonna let that cool for just a second. What I made to go with this was some corn, and I'm gonna bring that over. My lovely old pan. I don't have fancy dancy pans here on my channel. There you go. And all I did was put some butter in that. It's canned corn. It's not, you know, fresh corn or anything. And I do love fresh corn. There's a big farm here, not far from us, that raises corn. And man, there used to be a line to get into the farm to buy fresh corn from them. They sold off a lot of the farm, unfortunately, and I think a lot of the corn they grow now is not even for human consumption, but that's sad. But anyhow, I think a lot of our food is being outsourced these days. I'd like to see that change, but it seems like they're building houses on all the farmland recently. So anyway, let's get a fork and try this out and see what it looks like. Really, folks, that is just a great basic meatloaf right there. Yeah, you can't go wrong with that. And even people who don't like meatloaf like this meatloaf. One of the kids in our family, he still refuses to eat meatloaf, so he's the outlier in our family. I'm gonna give a shout out to Drew, because he's the one, he won't even try it. He had it when he was younger, didn't like it, and still won't eat it. But that's okay. More for us, right? All right, well, I hope you've enjoyed cooking with me tonight. We'll go over the recipe here. That topping is so good. Thank you. I jotted down the recipe because I always seem to forget something if I'm telling somebody. Okay, so we got 1 pound of ground beef, 1 cup of breadcrumbs, panko, half a cup of onion or ish, diced up however you like it, half a cup of milk, 1 large egg, 2 tablespoons ketchup ish, 1 tablespoon Worcestershire ish, 1 teaspoon dried parsley, a half to 3/4 teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon or more of black pepper. Sometimes I put even more than a teaspoon in there. And then for the topping, it's you mix your 2 tablespoons of brown sugar of your choosing with 1 tablespoon of red wine vinegar. Let that sit while you're mixing your meatloaf. And then you mix in a 1/4 cup of ketchup till that's all smooth. Squish your meatloaf into the pan, right? Make it all nice and even and pretty. And then spread your topping on top. Throw it in the oven at 350. I ended up baking this one for 50-ish minutes. And then I let it sit for about 7 or 8 minutes before I cut it. And then of course have a veggie. I put some butter and pepper in here, that's it. And sometimes green beans or peas are good. Sometimes we have mashed potatoes. My next video, we're gonna make some potato salad. So we're gonna have potato salad with these leftovers, and it is amazing. I can't wait to share it with you guys. So have a good evening, and everybody take care. See you next time.